Hey Bay Area, welcome back to SFN News, San Francisco Now, where we dig into the headlines that matter here and across the country. I'm Diane, and today we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most controversial federal agencies in America, ICE, and looking at how it's impacting our neighborhoods, families, and communities right here at home and nationwide. This isn't about politics. This is about people, power, and the systems shaping our lives. So buckle in. This episode is called Unmasking ICE. Who's at risk and why it matters? Let's get into it. What is ICE and what do they actually do? ICE stands for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and it's part of the Department of Homeland Security. Think of it as the law enforcement arm focused on immigration and cross-border crime. ICE is made up of two major divisions: Enforcement and Removal Operations, or ERO, which tracks down and deports people who violate immigration laws, and Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI, which goes after crimes like human trafficking, drug smuggling, cybercrime, and immigration fraud. So yeah, it's border stuff. It's crime investigations and immigration enforcement. Which brings us to where and how ICE shows up. Where ICE operates. Yes, it could be here. ICE operates in all 50 states. That means everywhere, from rural towns to urban hubs like Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, and yes, Sacramento and Los Angeles too. They show up in homes, workplaces, schools, courthouses, and even hotels. More on that later. They often coordinate with local law enforcement, but how and when they do varies depending on local laws and cooperation of policies. Here in the Bay, local policies often limit cooperation with ICE, but that doesn't mean the risk is zero. And for some people, that risk is very real. So, who's actually at risk of detention or deportation by ICE? Here's the breakdown. Undocumented immigrants, including folks who cross the border or overstayed a visa. People with prior criminal charges related to immigration or otherwise. And sometimes even those with legal status, if there's no paperwork issue or misidentification. Family members, neighbors, or co-workers can get caught up too, especially during workplace or community raids. In June 2025, ICE operations in Los Angeles and Sacramento triggered major backlash. Community groups like the AAPI Equity Alliance reported ICE raids targeting Asian American and Pacific Islander neighborhoods, often with masked agents and unmarked vehicles. One report cited 722 arrests in 10 days, including dozens from Asian countries, many of whom had no criminal record. Source: AAPIEquityAlliance.org. So yes, communities like Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, and Filipino immigrants are indeed under heightened pressure from ICE enforcement. But what makes their situation especially precarious are two critical, under-discussed challenges: language barriers and limited access. Why this matters to SFN viewers, especially in the Bay Area? Here in the Bay Area, where AAPI communities thrive in places like San Francisco, Daly City, the South Bay, and East Bay neighborhoods, these barriers carry real consequences. People skip court hearings, skip medical care, even skip religious services out of fear and confusion. When language and representation fail, so do constitutional protections like due process. Local allies are stepping up. The Asian Law Caucus, based in San Francisco, is a long-standing civil rights nonprofit offering multi-language legal support for housing and immigration rights. Latino, Black, and multi-generational risk. Of course, Latino and Hispanic communities are still among the most heavily impacted. That's because they represent a large portion of the undocumented population. But ICE doesn't always get it right. In fact, from 2012 to 2018, ICE wrongfully detained over 1,400 U.S. citizens, yes, citizens, including Black and Latino Americans, often due to bad data or misidentification. Case in point, Davino Watson, a U.S. citizen, was locked up by ICE for over 3 years. Another man, Mark Little, was deported despite being born in North Carolina. Source, the ALCU, The Guardian, and the Daily Beast. This isn't theoretical, it's happening. And for Black immigrants, reports show they face disproportionate abuse and medical neglect in ICE detention. That's from a 2022 report by the American Immigration Council. What about ICE identification? Here's something you might not know. ICE agents don't always clearly ID themselves or identify themselves. That's led to confusion, fear, and abuse of power. But help may be on the way. In July 2025, Senator Jackie Rosen introduced the Visible Act, which would require ICE agents to wear visible IDs, name badge, and agency during most operations, unless they're operating undercover. It's part of a growing push for transparency, accountability, and community trust. What's happening in the Bay Area? Here in the Bay Area, immigration and social justice go hand in hand. We've got tech wealth on one end and immigrant families being priced out on the other. Activists from Oakland to San Jose are calling out gentrification, racial injustice, and ICE's impact on communities. From street protests to legal advocacy, folks are showing up for immigrant rights. And that brings us to our closing thought, what we call Diane in the details. Diane in the details, social justice in the Bay Area. Here's the truth, Bay Area. We live in one of the most progressive regions in the country, and yet we still see people detained, displaced, and devalued. ICE isn't just a headline, it's a system, and systems can be challenged, especially by those who care, speak out, and organize. Whether it's AAPI advocates in Koreatown, Latino families in Fruitvale, or Black organizers in East Palo Alto. This is a fight for dignity, transparency, and human rights. Because here, social justice isn't just an idea, it's a daily effort. And it starts with knowing what's going on, knowing your rights, and standing with your neighbors. Thank you for joining us again. That's it for this episode of SFN News. If this got you thinking, share it, talk about it, get involved. Got a story or tip, or you want us to cover your neighborhood? Hit us up at sfnnewstv@gmail.com. I'm Diane Smith. Until next time, stay informed, stay connected, and stay Bay Area bold. See you next time.